I often wonder what others are thinking when I put out my videos explaining what I believe reality is based on my studies. Not that I worry about it. It creates more of a chuckle than anything else, because my imagination conjures up an incredulous, comical look on their faces. And this is what the kind of subjects I deal with produce. Since I started this channel, I have covered quite a few subjects, topics that are usually considered fringe or conspiratorial. And as I ponder these themes, I frequently speculate how best I should assemble the jigsaw pieces so they build a compelling narrative. Then, after considering all my sources of information, I feel a need to rate who I think is closer to the truth and who is further away. But it comes down to my opinion when all is said and done. And that opinion would be based on my information, of course, which of itself opens up a can of worms itself in terms of, do I have all the relevant facts? For example, is my data reliable? Am I missing some critical piece of information? And with all of this going through my fast decaying mind, is it any wonder I sometimes think, when looking back, that there seems to be little cohesion to my musings? That I feel it sometimes sounds more like the ramblings of a demented old fart than the work of a supermind.
Leading tech companies like Anthropic, and I'm going to mispronounce. I'm not going to even try. More than half the women in my cabinet, more than half the people in my cabinet, more than half the women in my administration are women. 68 times, 68 hours, 68 times, more than 68 hours. But every once in a while, I make a mistake. Not like once a speech, but at any rate, years ago when I started talking to for this job, I said, "Please take your seats." There weren't any seats; everyone was standing. There were no chairs.
And with my memory, or lack of it, it gets a little complicated. Hence the appearance of the chaotic meanderings of an old fogey. The fact is, I rely entirely on other people's research. All I do is attempt to tie the different threads together in an effort to justify one person's theory over another, which often depends on my current belief system, which itself is shaped by my studies. I have said before that this channel is my journey to find the truth of what our reality is. And I do it more to help stave off the inevitable dementia goose-stepping its way in my direction, more than attract a viewership. And that's just the harsh truth of it. Running this channel helps me retain the things I learn a little more efficiently than by just reading. Now, I am aware that I said a few videos back that there is no real reason for a journey to discover the truth of who we are, that we already have the answer in the form of our true essence. At our fundamental level, we are pure awareness. And that's true when we are talking about our essential being. But when it comes to our dream state, now let's call it that for now, when it comes to that description of our perceived reality, well, we can safely say we are on a journey. But it's always helpful to know who we essentially are while on this illusory voyage. For example, we are much more than the body and are not the labels we or others assign to us. But it's also important to understand what's behind this seemingly solid world around us if we want to know what lies at the heart of our experience. Because this is what life is. It's an experience. And understanding this helps us through our difficulties. So we ask questions like, is this a base reality or is it a simulation? Is it a simulation within a simulation? What about control and individual freedoms? Are we free? Do we have free will? Is it true that this planet is a prison? All questions I have asked and will continue to ask. My journey has sometimes been a challenge, especially when trying to figure out what an author's particular point of view is. The Archaic's extensive research is just one example. There is so much to wrap your head around. It's difficult to initially understand the overall picture. And I will admit that it is more likely my intellectual inability to grasp the immense amount of data put out than a lack of coherent information from Archaics themselves. Paul Wallace is another author that captured my imagination with his Eden series of books. Now, they're truly fascinating, particularly where he explains the original meaning of Hebrew words in the Bible over the interpretation given, often changing the narrative. Now, Jason seems to disagree with him a lot because Paul, who used to teach pastors, usually aligns himself these days with the ancient alien hypothesis. And Jason doesn't hold that view. He strongly argues against it, in fact. To him, ancient aliens come from within the planet and not out there, because there is no out there. Now, these are the kinds of complications I have to navigate because these two authors are far more intelligent than me, and I respect them both. I think they equally have aspects of the truth, which I cannot afford to discard, either side. Having said that, and me being me, I refuse to fully align myself with any particular theory until I have exhausted all my known options, if I ever will. I'll probably lose all my mental faculties before that happens. But until then, I rage on, because I'm the grumpy grandpa.
Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light.
Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Now, if you didn't know, that was Dylan Thomas. And this is what I'm doing. I'm raging against the dying of the light of truth. And I tell you, it's disappearing fast. The New World Order, which has been much spoken of and theorized in recent years, is in fact an agenda that is part of an old world order, whose objective is to create a totalitarian, militaristic, fascistic, and communistic world society. The Illuminati, who I mentioned in the last video, is the cabal who are trying to bring this dystopian nightmare into existence. During the past number of years, we have had glimpses of how this group of psychopaths operate on a lower level. We call it the deep state, an unelected government operating above the rule of law, free from all checks and balances, and immune to public scrutiny. We saw this with their treatment of President-elect Donald Trump, before he was President-elect, of course. Now, if you have been watching their shenanigans over the past few years with their lawfare against Trump and still believe their agenda is justly based, then I'm afraid there is no helping you. You should move on and go watch your favorite soap opera instead. You have no interest in this channel, let alone this video. But if you plainly see what's going on or are beginning to wake up to the corruption, then what follows just might interest you. As many of you will realize by now, if you are a regular, I follow a remote viewing group called the Farsight Institute, whose CEO is one Courtney Brown. Now, they have done some very interesting remote viewing projects in the past, which has helped formulate my impression that this planet is run like a prison. Now, I had my suspicions of that before, through my journey into Gnosticism. But Farsight's remote viewing project, called The Death Traps, helped solidify the suspicion and placed it within a modern context. Now, there are some aspects to Courtney that I find somewhat disturbing, might be a little strong. Sometimes he's a little embarrassing, or better still, eccentric. That's the word. He claims he talks to invisible aliens, which I've mentioned before. the good ETs, as he calls them. And in the latest video, he boasts about his testosterone levels at age 72 being high for his time of life. A little odd, if you ask me. Now, I can't deny he might be communicating with ETs because I'm not able to prove it one way or another. I like to think he does, and I think the evidence might prove that. I think it's certainly possible. Neither am I able to comment on his sex drive, because that's what he was basically talking about with his testosterone levels. I just wish he would traverse this obstacle a little more delicately, just for credibility's sake. And of course, it might just be my natural skepticism kicking in, or jealousy. And to be quite honest, his testosterone question is linked to a larger subject, his slow aging phenomenon. Got to be honest, he doesn't look 72. He says he's going to live to 120. Now, you will have to watch the video yourself to understand that context. But there is no denying the accuracy of much of what he puts out. For example, he predicted, because he says he was told by the good ETs, the appearance of the drones and UAPs invading our skies, which is continuing, by the way. How could he have known that with the precision of the timing unless he had been told? Coincidence? I don't think so. He says this drone appearance is part of a larger plan to force the governments to disclose the ET presence, which in turn will help end the prison planet situation. The act of disclosure will shine a light on the bad ETs, those who are authoritarian in their ideology, and will prevent their operating stealthily behind the scenes. Now, I showed a clip of one of their projects in the last video. Go take a look if you haven't seen it yet. Since then, Courtney has produced this more recent video to explain a little more precisely what's going on. And it's very interesting because despite his eccentricity, this seems to fill a lot of gaps. Now, I have compiled some relevant clips for your consideration within this context. You can see the whole of the video yourself. I'll leave a link in the description.
Welcome everyone to the Farsight Spotlight for today. And let me see, today is the 12th of January. Let me tell you that we have sort of a really interesting spotlight today. This is the weekly stuff that happens at Farsight. What I'm about to tell you today is right off the charts. And it's designed to help you understand and to believe that what I'm telling you is the truth, and what I have been telling you is the truth for a very long time. And I'm going to be offering you proof. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to accept the proof, but it is the proof. And if you want to accept it, that's good. My side is a free will side. My side, the ETs on my side, we're free will people. And we have to just let you accept whatever you want to accept. But let me tell you basically what's going to cover today. I'm going to go through a little bit about the art of war and why you need to know that the war has actually already started. The war for the fate of humanity has started. It's not disclosure that's coming in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It's a war. And it's happening now. And I have to tell you a little bit about the players, including myself. Right now it's not a super hot war, but it's starting. The ET ships that you've been seeing, the drones, so to speak, my side doesn't like calling them drones, but the ET ships that you have seen, there are some actually legitimate drones that are manufactured by the U.S. government. But that's not, that the ET ships so are for real, and they're not manufactured by the U.S. government, and they're the ones that started this whole thing. PSYOPs are really important. Farsight is a PSYOP. I'm participating in a PSYOP. The bad ETs are doing PSYOPs. The good ETs are doing PSYOPs. Truth can be a PSYOP. Truth is an extremely powerful PSYOPs, but also falsehood and lies and deception. That can be a PSYOPs as well. PSYOPs is when you're trying to influence humanity, when you're trying to change humanity in some way. It's a psychological and military manipulation of the public that is trying to get the public to believe certain things for certain goals. The truth is an extremely powerful PSYOP. And one of the reasons they're telling me no secrets of any type at all is we have to convince all of humanity that we're telling you the truth. So, let me talk a little bit about PSYOPs that are going on now, and then I'm going to get into the art of war, and so you can see what's actually happening. When we had our board meeting on November 13th, and they told us, our ET friends told us right at the board meeting, that's recorded and you can still watch it, it's got almost 100,000 views now, that the ships were going to show up like right away. They were going to start showing up, and they wanted everybody to see. You don't need special camera equipment, you don't see anything. We published it on the 15th, and on the 18th, the drones, as they so call it, started blowing up all over the place. I'm going to be quoting Sun Tzu. It's S-U-N, like the sun, and Tzu, which is T-Z-U. Now, he wrote The Art of War, of course. Most of you probably know that. And one of the things he said is, to subdue the enemy without fighting is the acme of skill. Now, acme means the peak, the best of skill. Now, you have to understand that the ETs, both the good side and the bad side, know that, and it's an absolute truth. What people like to do is they like to not fight things. ETs don't like to fight wars with ships. They lose ships, they lose personnel, they lose a lot of resources. Fighting ships, stuff like that, is not good on anybody's side. If you can subdue the enemy without fighting, that's the best. So PSYOPs come into this, and the ETs consider the investment of resources in PSYOPs to be absolutely minuscule compared to the investment of resources with actually fighting. And when you fight somebody, you have to restrain them afterwards. So you have to keep pumping in military resources, and you're not getting a willing person. What you really want is to conquer somebody and then to control them afterwards so that they do what we want them to do, basically to be your slaves. That's the art of war, and to get them to do it voluntarily. Now, as far as the bad ETs are concerned, I've told you many times, they have complete control over the political elite. Now, I don't know about Donald Trump right now. He's sort of he's a live wire. But in terms of all of the political elite we've had, is going back as far as you can think of, the bad ETs have them all locked up. Everything from bribery to mental manipulation to everything you can possibly think. However, and I'm hoping Donald Trump's going to be different. He's a disruptor. That's a technical term. He goes in and does things differently. So I'm hoping for the best, but you're not going to be saved by any one human, no matter who they are. It's going to be a mass movement from below that's going to be doing this. Now I'm going to give you another quote from Sun Tzu. This is important, because you have to know about how to fight your enemy. So the enemy is doing the first quote. If you subdue the enemy without fighting is the acme of skill. That's what they've been doing to you. Now, here's another one. On your side, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained you will also suffer a defeat. Now, if you know neither yourself or the enemy, you will succumb in every battle. Same person, Sun Tzu. Now, the basic interpretation of this is that if you go into battle knowing yourself and the enemy, knowing what the enemy is doing and knowing yourself, full knowledge, what you're supposed to be translating now is total disclosure. Okay? If you know yourself and the enemy, you will be able to defeat the enemy. Period. Full stop. End of story. Now, complete knowledge is the key to winning. That's why full disclosure is so important. But if you know only yourself, meaning you know yourself, but you don't know the enemy, you don't know what the bad ETs have been doing, then you have only a 50-50 chance of winning. That's what Sun Tzu is saying. Now, if you don't know yourself, you don't know who you are, and you don't know the enemy, you don't know what they're doing, you're going to lose every single time. That's what Sun Tzu is saying. So the basic interpretation is know your enemy, but also know yourself.
The whole reason for disclosure is to know our enemy, to be aware of what they are doing behind the scenes, as Courtney emphasized. Now, to know thyself is the beginning of wisdom, is a quote that's attributed to Socrates, and we would do well to take note of that wisdom, along with Sun Tzu, of course. According to Courtney, this is the knowledge we must have if we are to win this battle for our freedom. Now, I like Courtney, even though he gets a little peculiar at times. And all teasing aside, he is a PhD after all. And he says some very interesting things in this video, especially about Trump, who he terms a disruptor. Now, perhaps this is why the deep state has attacked him so fiercely over the past few years, certainly since his announcement to run again for the presidency. A little convenient, don't you think? Trump is unpredictable and not easy to control. This is why I believe they have targeted him. And it's useful to remember too that those doing the attacking are nothing more than puppets. Someone higher up is pulling the strings and making decisions. Courtney goes on to say, as I have also said in the past, that Trump can't be a savior alone. This is much bigger than one president alone. This is going to take all of us waking up to the enemy's presence. Courtney explains how that the majority of our world leaders have been compromised by the ET influence. And if this is the case with politicians, I think we can safely assume that the influence extends to the members of the cabal also, since these are the ones with the power and influence due to their wealth. John D. Rockefeller once said, "I don't want a nation of thinkers. I want a nation of workers." Now, it's well understood that the Rockefeller family play a large role in the cabal, along with the Rothschilds and other less-known houses of influence. And just as I quoted, we certainly have witnessed the dumbing down of America.
These people are efficient, professional, compulsive consumers. They think of that as their national pride. It's their civic duty. Consumption. It's the new national pastime. Baseball. It's consumption. The only true, lasting American value that's left, buying things. Buying things. People spending money they don't have on things they don't need. Money they don't have on things they don't need. So they can max out their credit cards and spend the rest of their lives paying 18% interest on something that costs $12.50. And they didn't like it when they got it home anyway. Not too bright, folks. Not too bright. But if you talk to one of them about this, if you isolate one of them, you sit them down rationally, and you talk to them about the low IQs and the dumb behavior and the bad decisions, right away they start talking about education. That's the big answer to everything. Education. They say we need more money for education. We need more books, more teachers, more classrooms, more schools. We need more testing for the kids. You say to them, well, you know, we've tried all of that, and the kids still can't pass the test. They say, don't you worry about that. We're going to lower the passing grades. And that's what they do in a lot of these schools now. They lower the passing grades so more kids can pass. More kids pass, the school looks good, everybody's happy, the IQ of the country slips another 2 or 3 points, and pretty soon all you'll need to get into college is a fucking pencil. Got a pencil? Get in there, it's physics. Then everyone wonders why 17 other countries graduate more scientists than we do. Education. Politicians know that word. They use it on you. Politicians have traditionally hidden behind 3 things: the flag, the Bible, and children. No child left behind. No child left behind. Oh, really? Well, it wasn't long ago you were talking about giving kids a head start. Head start, left behind. Someone's losing fucking ground here. But there's a reason. There's a reason. There's a reason for this. There's a reason education sucks, and it's the same reason that it will never, ever, ever be fixed. It's never going to get any better. Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got. Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The big, the wealthy, the real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. They're irrelevant. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets, and they own all the big media news, all the big media companies. So they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right. You know something? They don't want people who are smart enough to sit around the kitchen table and figure out how badly they get by a system that threw them overboard 30 years ago. They don't want that. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork, and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it. And now they're coming for your Social Security money. They want your fucking retirement money. They want it back so they can give it to their criminal friends on Wall Street. And you know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later, because they own this fucking place. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club. And by the way, it's the same big club they use to beat you over the head with all day long when they tell you what to believe. All day long, beating you over the head in their media, telling you what to believe, what to think, and what to buy. The table is tilted, folks. The game is rigged. And nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. Good, honest, hard-working people, white collar, blue collar, doesn't matter what color shirt you have on. Good, honest, hard-working people continue. These are people of modest means. Continue to elect these rich who don't give a fuck about them. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't care about you at all. At all. At all. Man. You know? And nobody seems to notice, nobody seems to care. That's what the owners count on, the fact that Americans will probably remain willfully ignorant of the big red, white, and blue that's being jammed up their asses every day. Because the owners of this country know the truth. It's called the American dream, because you have to be asleep to believe it.
Now, I couldn't have put that better myself. On a personal note, I have seen this phenomenon firsthand. Back towards the end of 2009, I lost my job due to downsizing. My job became redundant because many of my responsibilities went overseas at the time. Minnesota had a state program where if you lost your job because it went abroad, the state would pay for you to go to college to study for a 2-year associate's degree or something similar. Now, because I had done a computer programming course in the mid-90s in the UK, I decided on computer networking, the only computer-related subject available. Part of obtaining that degree was you had to take an English class. And at one point we had to write a paper on what I can't remember. But instead of the professor herself marking the paper, it would be peer-reviewed by a fellow student. Now, at the time, I was one of the oldest in the college. My reviewer was an 18 or 19-year-old female student. When I received her paper for review, I was shocked at the low standard of grammar and spelling. A 12-year-old could have done better. There was simply no excuse with today's spell checker. I did my best to review it as kindly as I could. When I received my review from her, the one complaint she had very little else to say about the paper, was she couldn't understand many of the words I used. Now, these were words I used in ordinary conversation. There may have been the odd word she generally couldn't understand. We all get those, right? But that's what Google is for, and all the online dictionaries, right? I was in shock and disbelief. I approached the professor to see what she had to say. She just played it down, obviously embarrassed. She had also read the reviews. And she told me not to worry. The review had no effect on my grade. It was more of a test than anything else. But it woke me up. The dumbing down appears to be working. Also, have you noticed how that billionaires are buying up resources? Bill Gates is acquiring huge amounts of farmland here in the US. Why? Yep, some of us have a sufficient IQ to ask these questions. Even me. And this land grabbing is on the rise. And why are large corporations buying up real estate and private property? We can be sure it's not for our benefit. And this is not just going on here in the US. This is happening everywhere. Greed is a big factor in this push. But more than that, it's about power and control. Remember Klaus Schwab when he wrote, "You will own nothing and be happy," in his book, The Great Reset? Now, this is widely known. But it's now being fact-checked by TikTok.com, of all places. They say the book he wrote contained no such quote. Now that's funny because I read the book on Kindle. And yes, it did. I read it myself. Now they may have deleted the quote in subsequent editions, but I can assure you it was there in the early edition. I read it for free using Amazon Kindle Unlimited because I was subscribed at the time. I would not have read the book otherwise. But the quote was there. I remember being called a conspiracy theorist at work when I stupidly mentioned the quote to others. That was until I showed the Moocows the quote in black and white. This is what we're dealing with, folks. We are being bombarded on all sides with lies and propaganda, while the population is becoming more stupid by the day. I no longer use Google as a search engine. The platform is so obvious, biased, and censored. There are better alternatives out there. The New World Order cabal are determined to dumb you down with poor education, frivolous TV shows, and the toxification of our food. Obesity is on the rise, and with it, a lower IQ average, just as they planned it. Watch during the coming years how, through the attack on farms, they will control the food supply. We've already seen the attack on farmers in the UK and in the EU. We are next year in the US if we don't stop oligarchs like Gates and corporations like Monsanto, voted the most hated corporation in the world, by the way, from doing their thing. Monsanto's history is filled with dark episodes, including the production of dioxin-laced Agent Orange, used to deform and kill hundreds of thousands during the Vietnam War. My brother was one of them, rest his soul, along with DDT, aspartame, and glyphosate, the main ingredient in Roundup, the weed killer. We need to be alert to what they are putting in our food. They are slowly poisoning us. Now, Courtney says that the good ETs he is in contact with call us zombies. And this isn't who we really are. This is just the result of meddling due to the cabal and this prison state. We must wake up, folks, because if we don't, we will remain in this zombie-like state. And dying won't be a way out. We'll just be recycled back, repeating the suffering, unless we are aware enough to escape. In this time of digital information, ignorance is a choice. You can be like the proverbial ostrich and stick your head in the sand and pretend nothing is wrong. Many do that. But unfortunately, it doesn't prevent the tsunami that's bearing down on you. And you'll get hit worse than the guy who saw it coming and was at least prepared for the impending reality. Just look at the tragedy taking place in California with the fires to see how that scenario plays out. with their incompetent, short-sighted leaders. Billions of dollars literally gone up in flames when it could have been prevented by applying a little common sense. The fact is, once you understand what's coming, you need to place your focus on it and come up with solutions. Farsight is trying to do that. In the end, truth is more powerful than lies. So why not, along with me, rage against the dying of the light, and share the information. Until the next time.
Nothing worth doing ever came easy.
Treat the word impossible as nothing more than motivation.
Never, ever quit. Never quit. Adversity makes you stronger. Don't give in, don't back down, and never stop doing what you know is right.
They want to take away my freedom because I will never let them take away your freedoms. They're not coming after me, they're coming after you, and I just happen to be standing in their way.
When they couldn't beat him, they tried to bankrupt him.
President Trump is back in a New York City courtroom.
When that didn't work, they tried to put him in federal prison.
Raided by the FBI.
When that didn't work, they even tried to kill him.
They just tried to kill President Trump.
Donald Trump still stands, ready to fight, ready to win, and ready to make America great again.
This is Donald Trump's house, brother.
This election, we all get to choose. I'm going to choose real American leadership and a real American values. The 45th and soon to be 47th President Donald J. Trump.
Day one, we will defeat inflation quickly and we will make America affordable again. I will cut your energy costs in half. It's time for the working man and woman to finally catch a break. We are going to bring back the American dream, bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. When I'm back in the White House, we will restore world peace, and it will be again peace through strength. I will launch the largest deportation program in American history. And we'll put these vicious and bloodthirsty criminals in jail or kick them the hell out of our country. November 5th, 2024 will be Liberation Day in America.
We all salute the same great American flag. Our best days are yet to come.
Together, we will make America great again.